Hello again, Sonia from Sonia Arroyo Art here. Today I'm going to show you how to make these beautiful agate resin trays and also how to convert it into a table and how I attach the legs in this particular case. Some product info can be found in the description below. First I'm picking the amount of stones I need and check that they are not too high for my mold. I also turn them with the side that I like best facing up at this point. Next, I want to give the edges a polished look with a metallic pigment, which is gold in this case. You can use your favorite metallic pigment and mix it with alcohol ink or varnish and brush it on, or like I'm doing here, use a metallic paint marker. I paint the top edges and halfway down the sides. Most of the sides will be covered with glitter anyway, but since they are slightly different in height, you might see more of the sides on some stones later, and I want whatever is peeking through to be golden. Before I start, I level my surface and check that my mold is clean. If you would have any debris or fuss sticking to your silicone, you can use some painter's tape and lift it off. It will just stick to it. I used some alcohol to wipe it down before I started. I'm using Let's Resin tabletop throughout this whole project, and I need to point out that it is important to use the right resin for this type of work, which needs to be super hard and durable. For the first pour, I'm only mixing a small batch of resin because I want only a very thin layer to be spread out, just enough so I can place my stones in and let this set so they won't move again throughout the rest of the project. I'm adding the stones with the gold edges facing up, and once they are all inside, I can move and position them a little better so I have somewhat even spacing between them. I let this set for about 6 hours with this particular resin. To continue with my glitter, I'm using Bight and champagne gold from my line. They are super sparkly, heat and UV resistant, and make a great color combo for this piece. I mix the glitter with resin to fill the gaps between the stones. You can just pour it from your cup, being careful not to cover the stones. If that's too risky for you, you can also fill it into a syringe to apply. You can see me doing that in a second. This gives you a little bit more control, and you can use the tip to push and guide the glitter into the tighter spaces. Removing the bubbles and letting it set for the first clear layer of resin. This will mostly even out the dips between the glitter and the stones, and depending on the height of your stones, between 2 and 4 layers of resin are required. I needed 2 for this piece, but if you have lots of space in your mold, you can also use a deep pour epoxy at this point because it can be poured in deeper layers. So you would fill it with deep pour epoxy once, and at the end add a layer of tabletop. The resin has fully cured at this point, so I'm taking it out of the mold, and the outer edges are a bit sharp here, so I take pieces of sandpaper and sand these parts down to be smooth. It's time to paint the outside in gold. I'm using the paint marker again. If you use your metallic pigment, mix it with an oil-based varnish instead of alcohol ink for better durability. I'm also running the paint over the sanded down edges around the top rim, which creates a beautiful border. After finishing this, you could add adhesive bumpers to the bottom and have a beautiful tray, but I'm also going to show you how I attach legs to make it into a small table. Since this is fairly thin and has the stones embedded, I don't want to drill into it. It's also overall delicate size table, so I will cut several pieces of wood to build table leg extensions. I'm showing the process on a silver table since the gold ones have been delayed in transit. I'm using 16-inch hairpin legs and mark the shape of the back end onto a 1/2 inch thick wood panel to be cut out with a jigsaw. Shout out to my wonderful husband for helping me filming the next few steps here. Once the pieces are cut out, any sharp edges are sanded down with sandpaper. Here I mark the holes from the table leg onto the cutout. I'm using 3 out of the 5 holes and drill into each. I'm using T-nuts, which have little teeth around the top edge which hold onto the wood once you hammer them in with a rubber mallet. Next up, I want to match the wood to the table legs and decided to add some silver leafing. You see me applying the adhesive here. It would be sufficient to only cover the sides because these are the only visible parts once assembled, but I'm going ahead and put the silver also on the top part where the legs will be screwed over. It just gives it a more refined and finished look when you send it out to someone. I attach the sheets about 30 minutes after the adhesive got tacky and brush all the excess off. So this is what the finished pieces look like. I attached one to a table leg to show you how nicely it matches. I marked the areas in the back where I want to add the pieces and roughen up these spots with some sandpaper for super strong bond. I add some resin to these areas and place the cutouts there to attach. And once the resin starts to set, you can always add a weight on each so it's really tight while it cures. This is the dried piece now. Since the leafing had time to dry over the last few days, I can add the sealer on the leafing so it won't tarnish. Once this has dried, the legs can now be screwed in and unscrewed without any problems. So I'm gonna assemble it and call it finished. And if you found this tutorial helpful, please like, subscribe and leave me a comment. Much love and bye for now.